Hello and welcome back to the Earn Your Badge from Home program. Today y'all are going to be earning your Coding for Good badge by completing a project using HTML and JavaScript. And we're going to keep touching on the concepts that we've been talking about like functions, variables, and arrays. So let's just get started. So let's take a look at the project that y'all are going to be completing today. So what this is like a quiz to assess somebody's quote-unquote health score. Now, it's going to ask a few questions. It's going to ask about the user's sleep, how much water they are getting, and whether they choose to eat healthy food or not. Assess their answer, and based off of the number or the answer that the user types in, they're going to add points to a final score and then ultimately output that final score. So it's a health score between 1 and 3, 3 being good. So let's click on Start Quiz. And my first question is, how much sleep do you think you get each night? So I'm going to say 8 hours. Or, let's keep it low. So I'm going to say 5 hours and then hit OK. And then it says, how many cups of water do you drink in a day? Again, let's keep this one at 8. So we'll say that's considered a good amount. And click on OK. And it says, do you eat healthy more often than you eat junk food? So here, even though it says okay or cancel, think about it as okay means me selecting yes, and cancel means me selecting no. So I'm going to say, okay, yes, I do eat more healthy food than I eat junk food. So it says okay, and it says my final score is 2. So that means my health score is 2 out of 3. And then I'm going to hit okay, that's just an alert. And then lastly, all the answers that I typed in appear here. So according to this quiz, what we're going to consider a sleep score that's good enough to get you a point is going to be 9 hours. We're going to say 8 cups of water is what gets you another point. And then selecting yes for if you eat healthy food more often than you eat junk food is what gets you that final point. And you saw that overall score appear in the alert. So let's see how we're actually going to build this thing now. Alright, so this is the template that you should have open. As you can see, it's pretty bare. That's the way we have it because y'all are going to be writing most of your code today. All that's really loaded in for you is just the image and how it should look so that you have that all ready for you. Let's get rid of this extra little comment that we added here because obviously we don't need that anymore. It's just to let y'all know when you see it that nothing's wrong. Okay, so we want our image on the top. Let's just kind of get all the pretty things out of the way. So have our header first appear. So that's going to be that title that says find out your health score. So if y'all don't remember, we're going to create that H1 tag. So find the less than symbol, say H in lowercase 1. And then when you autocomplete that, it'll finish your header for you. And then inside, we are going to write, find out your health score. Okay, so remember, H1, it's a tag. A tag is something that allows us to apply some sort of property on whatever we put between our tags. So here we've placed text in between header tags, and header tags are going to make this text appear large and bolded on my screen when I hit run. So let's hit run, and there is my header tag. And there is my header appearing. So the next part is let's get our button that says Start Quiz appearing. So remember, this button's not going to do anything when we click on it quite yet. We're going to have to add some code, but first let's just get it appearing so we can see how it looks. So I am going to, again, create a button tag. And now in between, I'm going to write the word Start Quiz. So now my button appears, but when I click on it, obviously nothing happens. Not a big deal, we just need to add some code for it. So now let's actually get our questions being asked and store them and do all that fun stuff and ultimately get some sort of score, right? This whole project has to do with gathering data from a user, right? And then using that data to give some sort of varied output. Obviously, whatever score that the user gets in the end is based off of the numbers that they typed in. So the big thing is we're analyzing what they're typing in and adjusting whatever our final output is. But first, we need to actually give them an opportunity to type something in, right? So in order to get that like prompt box appearing and asking that question, I'm going to type in the word prompt, that's my command, in my JavaScript section. Add my opening and closing parentheses. Those will autocomplete for you as long as you hit the opening one. And then inside, we are going to place whatever question we want displaying in that box. So I'm going to find my quotations, and then I'm going to say, how much sleep do you think you get each night? And then here's the thing. I want to store whatever the user typed in, right? I want to store whatever their answer was so I can keep that information for later and have it display and do fun stuff with it. So we are going to store whatever they wrote in a variable. So I'm going to go place my cursor at the beginning of line 1, and then I'm going to say var. So to show I'm creating a variable, and let's give it a name. I'm going to call this one sleep amount. Say equals, and then at the very end, let's place a semicolon to finish it off. So let's hit run. Let's see what happens. There's my window appearing. It says, how much sleep do you get each night? I'm just going to type in a number. Nothing's going to happen from it. But good, we got our first question asked. So the next part is going to be, I want to determine whether or not the number that the user typed in is worthy of gaining a point towards their health score. And here we're going to determine that they need to type in a number that's 9 or higher. Say that they get 9 hours of sleep or higher to consider that they get enough sleep. Let's say we're doing this for teenagers, right? So to do this, I'm going to write an if statement. An if statement is a way for us to check for some sort of certain condition. In this case, the condition we're checking for is if the number that the user typed in is greater than or equal to 9. And as a result of that certain condition being true, we are going to have some sort of action occur, right? So it allows us to check for certain situations, and if they're true, we can have some sort of other action happen as a result. And if the situation isn't true, if they don't type in a number that's less or that's greater than 9, then that certain action doesn't happen. It's as simple as that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an extra line in the middle just because y'all are going to need that space in just a second. So let's write our if statement. So I'm going to say if, add a set of opening and closing parentheses. Whatever goes inside of these parentheses is the condition I'm checking for. And I'm going to say sleep amount because that's the name of my variable. That's how I'm accessing what the user typed in. And I'm going to say greater than or equal to 9 because that's the number I'm comparing it with. And then I'm going to add a set of curly braces. These will autocomplete for me as well. And then I'm going to hit enter once so I have a line in the middle. And whatever's between these two curly braces is my resulting action. Now, remember, our resulting action is the user gaining a point towards getting a 3 as their health score, right? So what we can do is create a variable called score, and then we can start it off at 0 and say every time that the user types in something that fits our threshold, we add a point to that variable. All a variable is a place to store information, and we can change that information that it stores. So what I'm going to do is place my cursor at the very beginning of line 1, hit enter once, and I'm going to create a variable score. So I'm going to say var score equals 0. So now my variable starts out equaling 0. My score starts out at 0. And then if my user got 9 hours of sleep, then let's tell score to go up by 1. To do that, I can type in score plus plus and add a semicolon at the end. Now, score plus plus, it simply just increments whatever number that score previously held up by 1. So if my score variable holds the value of 7, after this line of score plus plus, it's going to now be equal to 8. That's all that score plus plus does. So here, my score started out at 0, and if the user typed in a number greater than or equal to 9, then score will be equal to 1. And then we can keep moving. Now there's one more thing we want to do with what the user typed in for the amount of sleep that they got. We are going to store it in an array. Now, the reason we want to do this is because, if y'all remember, after I finished my quiz and I got my health score, I had my three answers to my questions display on my white panel here on the side, right? I got the answers that I typed in back, so that, say, if you get a health score of 2, you can see which one you probably got off on. So if we store each of the answers in an array, then we can access them later and then display them. Now, a quick summary of what an array is. An array is simply another way for us to store information, just like a variable. A variable stores one singular piece of information. An array gives us the ability to store multiple pieces of information. That's all it is. So to learn a little bit more about arrays in a really nice visual way, I want you to go to the CS Discoveries link that you had open prior to starting your project, and just take the 3 minutes to watch this video and learn a little bit more about arrays, and then come back. But basically the gist of it is going to be that arrays store information in a specific pattern, and that pattern is basically the order that which they were inputted. And then we can access each of those individual pieces by figuring out the placement of the information within the array. So I really strongly recommend watching this 3-minute video to learn a little bit more about them. Okay, so now that you've come back from the video and you've learned more about arrays, what we're going to do is add the user's first answer to an array. Okay, so to do this, what I'm going to do is first we got to create one, right? So to do that, I'm going to say var total data. So that's going to be the name of my array, total data. I'm going to say equals, and I'm going to add a set of opening and closing brackets. And then I'm going to add a semicolon at the end. Now, the opening and closing brackets are simply me saying I'm going to create an empty array and then eventually add information to it. So the first piece of information I want to add is the amount of sleep that they got. So to do this, I'm going to say total data dot, that tells me which array I'm adding to, and then I'm going to add a set of parentheses. And then I'm going to type in the word push. This is the function that is associated with adding a piece. Basically what this does is it gives me the ability to add whatever information I'm about to place in these parentheses into the array. So here what I'm going to do is say total data.push sleep amount. This method is what allows me to actually add a new piece of information. Okay, so our question has been asked, the answer has been stored, it's been added to an array, and we've also added to our score. So now let's get on to asking the user their second question, which is going to be about how much water they get. So I'm going to say var water amount, because I know I'm going to need to be storing this information. So might as well do it ahead of time. And I'm going to say equals. And then now let's give our second prompt. So I'm going to say prompt. Inside of the parentheses, let's say, how many cups of water do you drink in a day? End it with a semicolon. And then same thing. Let's store whatever they typed in the array. So I'm going to say total data.push. And then this time we're going to add whatever they typed in for their answer, which is going to be water amount. End it with a semicolon. And I'm going to say if. This time we're going to say, okay, they needed to at least type in 8 to earn the next point for their health score. So they need to be drinking at least 8 cups of water in a day. So we're going to say if water amount is greater than or equal to 8, and then add a set of curly brackets, hit enter once so that whatever action you place inside of these curly brackets is what's going to happen as a result of the condition being true. And once again, this is how they earn their next point. So we can say score plus plus. It takes the value that score previously held. In this case, it might be 1 if they got the first threshold. And then it's going to add 1 to it to give us a new total amount. So now at this point, say they got the first question right, score is going to be equal to 2 if they also got this one right. So now let's get our last one done, which is going to be asking about whether the user eats healthy food more often than they eat junk food. So once again, let's create another variable. I'm going to say var food, I'm going to say equals. And here, instead of using a prompt command, I'm going to use a confirm command. A confirm, the only difference between a confirm and a prompt is it's asking a yes or no question and receives either a yes or a no. rather than letting the user type in absolutely anything. So I'm going to say confirm. And then here, let's ask our third question. Inside of quotations, don't forget those. And then also don't add any spaces between the word and the parentheses or anything. You want all this squished together. So I'm going to say, do you eat healthy more often than you eat junk food? And then add a final semicolon. Now, once again, let's store whatever their answer was. Remember, the box that appears either says okay or cancel. I know those aren't the words that immediately come to mind when you think of yes or no, but know that okay in this context means yes. When the user clicks on okay, that means that they're answering yes, I do eat healthy more often than I eat junk food. And then same thing with cancel. If they click on the word cancel, that means they're saying no, I don't eat healthy more often than I eat junk food. Okay? So again, let's store whatever they wrote in our array. So we have all this information stored in one location. So I'm going to say total data dot push, and then this time let's say food. Now, our if statement for this one's going to look a little different. You see, this information that we collect from our confirm statement is collected in the form of what we call a Boolean. Now, a Boolean is just a really ugly word for saying whether the user's input was considered true or false. Now, again, it's exactly like what I said with yes or no. It's them saying when they click on okay, and they're saying, yes, I do eat healthy food more often than I eat junk food. It's them saying the situation of me eating healthy more often than I eat junk food is true. So the computer collects it in the form of a true or false. The way we interpret it is yes or no. The computer interprets it as true or false. Okay, so we're going to say if the situation of them eating healthy more often than they eat junk food is considered true by the computer, then let's add our final point to our score. So I'm going to say if food equals, you have to use two equal signs because you're comparing two pieces of information. I'm going to say true. Notice how it turned purple because again, it's a Boolean. It knows what piece of information it's working with. Don't capitalize that. Keep it lowercase. Add your set of curly brackets, and then I'm going to say, let's add a point to my final score. So I'm going to say score plus plus, and then add my semicolon. Now, you have all your questions asked, you have all of it being stored in your array, and you have some sort of final score. Remember, the score only goes up if the user typed in what we considered was a reasonable number, or I would even say like the correct answer, right? Let's give them their final score. Let them know what it is. So to just let someone know and not really care about getting any sort of input, you can use an alert command. So here I'm just going to say alert and then add an opening and closing parenthesis. And inside of quotations, let's say your final score, add a colon, and then add a space because we want a space between our final score and the colon. Remember, a space gets interpreted as a character, so it'll be included. And then I'm going to add a plus because now I'm adding another piece of information that's not just a part of any sort of string, right? The score could be any number. It could be 1, 2, 3, or even it could be 0, right? So now, let's say, after that piece of text, insert whatever number that score held, and that's what's going to get displayed. So I'm going to say plus score, and then hit my semicolon at the end, outside of those parentheses. So now let's hit run. Here's my first question. I'm going to get 2 out of the 3 right. So I'm going to say 9, let's say 5, and then let's say, okay, yes, I do eat. So now my final score is 2, and that's exactly what we expected. Nice. Okay, so this is looking really, really good. We just need a few more things we need to add, right? First off, let's figure out how we can get those results finally appearing at the bottom. That's what we're going to use our array for. So what we're going to do is, first off, we are going to kind of create sections within our HTML to insert this. You see, the information we're accessing here from our JavaScript portion is information that can change, right? And it's all stored here with using our JavaScript variables and yada yada. But we need to have somewhere in our HTML that we can actually insert it and get it printing out the way we want it to look. So that's what I'm going to do in HTML first. I'm going to go in and I'm going to add that less than symbol. I'm going to say div. and then say ID equals. So now I'm giving, essentially what we're doing is kind of creating a placeholder in our HTML that's waiting for the information we're going to give it from JavaScript. It's a way for us to connect the two now. So I'm going to give it an ID. This is a way for me to identify it and basically tell each portion from my JavaScript, each piece of information I'm trying to insert, where it needs to go. So I'm going to give it this one as a name of sleep. I'm going to add my greater than. And this is me creating essentially that placeholder. So now this is me saying, okay, this is waiting for the information from JavaScript to actually input it. So at the very bottom of my JavaScript code, now we're going to have this really long, what seemingly ugly line, but I promise there's a method to the madness. So we're going to say document.getElement by ID, follow my capitalization and don't add any extra spaces. And then here is where we're going to tell it where the information is going to get inserted. That place where we created the divider, and then inside the quotations, I'm going to say sleep. Okay. So this is it saying, okay, it knows where to go. Let's give it something to place actually, right? So I'm going to say .inner HTML, getting the two to collaborate. And then I'm going to say equals. And then here we are going to say, and here we're going to add a piece of text first. We're going to say sleep. We're labeling the information we're inserting. Outside of those quotations, I'm going to add a plus because we're combining two different pieces of information. And then here, again, think back to the arrays video. How am I going to access the first element from my array? The first element from my array is what the user said for their sleep, right? So I'm first going to say, which array am I accessing from? Total data. And then inside of a set of hard brackets, I know I'm accessing the first value, and I know that computers are annoying and begin counting at 0. So I'm going to first say 0. It's as simple as that. And then add a semicolon. So now let's hit run. And now my first value that I typed in appears here. So now let's do this 2 more times. Let's create one more placeholder here. Let's say div ID equals. Our next one is going to be for water. So inside of quotations, let's give it an identifier. I'm just getting rid of the extra spaces because I think it looks a little easier on the eyes. And then the next one is going to be, again, document.getElement by ID. Inside, let's say water, because that's what my divider's name was. That's what my identifier was. Got to keep that the exact same, and say .inner HTML equals. See right there, teeny tiny little mistake. Got to make sure that's capitalized. And then here, let's say water, labeling the information we're displaying. Add our plus sign and say, okay, again, trying to access, this time, the second piece of information from my total data array. So I'm going to say total data. And then again, if it's the second piece and computers begin counting at 0, that means 1 is going to be my next item. That is how I access whatever is stored there. Everything has its own specific location, and in order to access specific pieces of information, we got to tell the computer exactly where to retrieve it from. So again, let's do this one more time, this time for the food, right? So again, divide ID equals, inside food, add our closing, and then once again, document.getElement by ID, inside, let's say food, .inner HTML equals food, label our information, plus total data, and see if you can figure out what the final number is going to be. It's going to be 2. Accessing our third and final item. Again, remember, even though computers start at 0, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a matter of starting at a different number, but you're still incrementing up the same way by 1. So now let's get that final run going. Click on run, see how it looks. Let's say 8, 4, and then I'm going to hit cancel so you can see that it stores as false or me reading no. I didn't get any of the threshold, so my score is 0. And now we're seeing all those that final display of all my answers. Now, something to really help you all understand how these placeholders work, wherever these placeholders are, just like everything in HTML, order matters, right? And these are simply just us creating places for information to eventually be inserted. So if I were to change the order of this, so let me cut and paste this at the bottom, then when I hit run, whatever information I type in for sleep is going to be in there last. So see how now my answer for sleep is at the bottom? It's just creating a place for it to be inserted. That's all it is. So I'm going to place it back. All right, but this is looking really good. Last thing we need to do is have these prompt boxes only appear when I click on Start Quiz, right? Now, that's when we come back to our button. We're going to, first of all, say all of this needs to be inside of a function of its own, a mini set of instructions. And then, the nice thing with functions is they don't run unless we tell them to, right? Right now, this code is running regardless of what we tell it to. There's nothing stopping it from it. So if we put all of it inside of a function of its own and say the function itself should only run when we click on our button, that solves our problem. So I'm going to say function, and then I'm going to name it Start Quiz. Put this at the very top, don't skip anything. Open and closing parentheses, and then create a set of curly brackets, but then delete that final closing curly bracket and place it at the very bottom so that all of this information is inside of your function. And then go to button, and then inside of your opening tag, say on click. This is it searching for the event of the user clicking on the button. Inside of a set of quotations, type in your function call exactly like how you named it. So here it's going to be Start Quiz, uppercase in my Q, open and closing parenthesis, and finish it off with the semicolon. So now I hit run, and I don't immediately get a prompt box, but I can click on Start Quiz. Now my prompt boxes appear, which is exactly what we wanted. Let's type in this. I'm going to say I expect a score of 1 by hitting cancel. Exactly what we wanted. Click on OK. And all of my answers appeared here. Sleep is back now where it's supposed to be because I moved its divider back where it's supposed to be as well. And with that, you've completed your health quiz game. And congratulations on earning your third Coding for Good badge.